Summer's over with. Can you believe that? Now it's time to get a branch store. Why not? You crazy guys. Hey, I'm glad to have you here. You know, we're going to talk about going from a single store to multi-store, or from multi-store to a whole bunch of stores here today. Got some really good guests with me. We want to thank Jasper Engines and Transmissions for continuing to support the Town Hall Academy each and every week. You know, as the average age of vehicles continues to rise, your customer's old engine or transmission is going to wear out. And when that day comes, Jasper will be the name to remember. Jasper's remanufactured products cost considerably less than a new vehicle. Have you seen the prices of new vehicles lately? F-150, I don't know. Who's got $50,000 laying around, right? So it just makes sense to choose Jasper for your customers' drivetrain solutions. Welcome to Jeff Moore from Moore Tires in Rock Falls, Illinois. Hey, Jeff.
Good morning, Carm. Beautiful day here in Rock Falls, Illinois.
Glad to hear it, man. Rockville, 5 stores. You're a busy beaver.
There's always a fire going, and sometimes we want to throw more wood in the fire and keep it going hotter, and other times we're trying to put the fire out, you know, so there's never a dull moment.
I bet you there isn't. And then Austin Miller's with us, Tire Star. Hey, man. 3 stores. Wolcottville. Did I say that right? Wolcottville?
You did. Yep.
Wolcottville,
that's correct.
Indiana.
That is correct.
And I don't know if you noticed, but I have a couple of contrasting views here. We have a very young man in Austin, and we have a seasoned man in Jeff.
Seasoned.
Like that word, seasoned?
Yeah. That is appropriate, I guess.
Hey, you know, we've done a lot of shows on the podcast, be it Remarkable Results of the Town Hall Academy. We've done Am I Ready for My Second Branch? Lessons I Learned When I Sold My Shop, Preparing Your Business for Sale. And I think it's something that at least every 6 months we've got to cover a story like this, or at least get some great advice from people in the industry that have been there and done that and continue to do it, which is why Jeff and Austin are here. And I really want to make sure that the people that are with us and that are going to hang out and listen to this, I think there's a couple of different thought patterns of thinking as you hang out with us. And that is that you're looking to grow, or you may be selling and you want to hear what these guys that want to buy branches are thinking about. But more important than ever is that you need a commitment of time, people, and money in order to grow. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. So, Jeff, I want to really kick it off with you. You had told me on the phone this week that you recently had a meeting with a peer about opening a second store, and you had an extremely blunt reply.
Yes. There's a sort of a misconception that if you're doing great with your first store, that the second store will be a piece of cake, you know. And then we went through this experience back in the 90s, a little over 20 years ago. We was just booming here at our main single store, 20% year over year growth, you know. So you're just thinking, man, we got this down. It'll be no problem.
You mean you're untouchable, right? Whatever you touch is going to turn to gold, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we went in with total blinders on and overwhelmed, to say the least. And we stuck with it for probably 5 years, and before we threw in the towel, because we had such tremendous growth. We did not have a process and procedure set in place for that second store. Because of the massive growth at our single first store, we did not help them, you know, and sort of threw them out there to the wolves, and it suffered because of that. And so we regrouped, we closed that, and had some key personnel, brought it back to our first store, and you know, for quite a few years we said, you know, one store is enough. We got enough going on, enough balls in the air, that we got plenty to do without having to add that second store.
Did you lose any money?
Yeah, big time. That was probably $50,000 a year for 5 years, so $250,000, you know, And again, that all fell back on the first store,
Yeah.
as far as where that money came from. And again, just like you referred to, Carm, is that we think we're the golden child, and whatever we do, we're going to have that pot of cash coming in that we'll just keep taking it to the bank, and
Okay.
that wasn't the case.
Well, thank you for being so honest, so transparent to give us a number, which is shuddering. I wish you could probably have that in the bank somewhere, growing trees for you. But okay,
Exactly.
so you didn't, and you learned from it. But still, now you're up at 5 stores. So you've kind of figured out how to break the code. Now, Austin, did you realize and learn maybe from the mistakes of previous people? Did you kind of put your ear to the ground and ask some other people and says, hey, I want to grow? And of course, Jeff would say, you're crazy, you're nuts, don't do this. And then you said, but no, but I'm young enough and I can do this. And can you share a little of the experience that you had in the decision to grow to number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Now, remember, you've got 3, but that number 2 growth is like the biggest thing you could ever possibly do besides have a baby or get married, right?
Close. Yes, close. Going into that, we definitely, gave it a lot of thought. Probably the biggest thing that helped me with store number 2 is it was profitable when I bought it. Not super profitable, but at least it was making a little bit of income. The previous owner stayed on for a few months to transition it.
Hey, hold that thought 1 minute. Hold that thought. Jeff, did you buy a going business or did you put up a grassroots up?
Grassroots and good personnel,
Okay.
but we just didn't have the process and procedures. So that was the second store.
Okay, got
and
it.
then there's a whole nother story to the second go around.
We want to hear that. We want to hear that in a minute. But Austin, I wanted to clarify that, he
Sure.
did a brownfield, if you will, and you bought a going business. Okay, keep going.
Correct. And I think that really helped us starting out because there was business there. Just one day we switched bank accounts and we made money from the very first month. And that made that second store be a lot easier than it would have been if we would have started from scratch. And I think that was monumental for us because it gave us we hit the ground running with that store, and we never had a month that we didn't make an income since we bought it. And that's been huge in growing the business and going to 3 stores.
Did you bring the processes that you had so perfectly refined at the first store to the second right away?
I wouldn't call them perfectly refined at that point in time. I would say it's a work.
I was putting my tongue in my cheek when I said that, because don't we all find, everybody, that that's the biggest challenge, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And that's definitely a work in progress. We try really hard to work on that every single day. I feel like we did bring a lot of positive change. Back then, looking back, I wouldn't say that it was perfect. And it's still not today,
right.
But we're in the pursuit of perfection.
Hey, Carmen, Austin, if I truly feel if we know what we know today, back in 1997 or whatever, same people, same location, and we would have made that store successful. So we've learned from our mistakes, and process and procedures have really expanded. And if we was to do it again at that store and with those personnel, it would have been a successful store.
I've talked to a few people recently that says, hey, I really want to expand, but I'm so weak on my processes and my systems. And, I've heard from enough of you all that have expanded. And I do like to share that. You can't expect that you're going to have that golden touch and, all of a sudden, like what the Wizard of Oz would say, it's just going to happen. Mind melt with my people. They know exactly what to do, when to do it. So it comes down to a thought about personnel and how to staff a place. If the systems and the processes are good, so you make a deal, you get ready to buy a place, and you got a 3-month window to close, potentially negotiate and close. Do you start hiring people and bring them in the main store so that when you open on day one, you stuff it, and it, even though you had people, Austin, when you were there. If you were buying a going business, would you still put your key people that you've been grooming at store one into store two?
I would say absolutely. Uh, we did that both times we expanded, and I thought that really helped us because we had someone that knew how we did things, and we were able to just transition them into the store that was opening. And I think that really helped give us momentum starting off.
We, our best employees, Carm, is from within, and
Correct.
those are the ones that we have moved up and excelled with. One of the problems we have is our main store, sort of I want to call it a superstore in my mind, but we got 40 plus employees here. And what happens is we take our key players and move them forward, and we have to always give them that opportunity, but it does sort of rock our world at the main store, because now we have those superstars, those rock stars that we need to replace, and that's hard to do.
40 people at one place.
It's a lot of balls to juggle, you know.
I bet you. Now, what I just heard you say, and confirm if I'm right or wrong, is that the main store is the proving ground, and you look for those superstars. Is it to the point where I got so many great superstars in the main store, I need to get another branch so that I can keep this guy?
Yeah, and that's exactly the second time around, you know, when that opportunity came for store number two.
Yes.
In 2014, an elderly couple in their 70s, long-time family business, 60 plus years. They was looking to retire, so they had good personnel, had good facilities, and we had key personnel here. So that what I've learned, DSP 20 Group has been awesome for myself, and I think Austin can speak for that also. But what I've learned from the 20 Group is there's a lot of times 20 different opinions, you know, and
No, wait a minute. Let me stop you, Jeff. There's 250,000 shops, say in the U.S., whatever the number is, and there's 250,000 different ways to run an independent automotive shop.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine
just
all the stuff incoming.
Yeah, what's cool in the 20 Group is people that have accepted the practices and put it into place. There's 20 great ideas, you know, so there's not bad suggestions in there, and so we all learn from that. So we all sort of pick our ways and our benchmarks and tailor it to our needs. But in this store number two, the second time around, we had two key personnel we call our leaders here, and I felt paid rather well, you know, but you always worry about losing key personnel. So this opportunity came, and I said to these two key personnel, which is Brock and Greg, do you want to get involved financially? Because at that point, any financial funds that they would put into store one would not have been a very substantial share. So to have some real meat in the business, store number two was an opportunity. And my wife, Angie, who is also my partner from day one, and I don't know if she realized what she was getting into when she married me, but she and myself did not want to take on this challenge of store number two. And I got to be careful to keep Angie and Austin's wife, Lisa, not sitting together too often, because I think they'd like to reel Austin and I in sometimes, you know, so.
But you will go kicking and screaming the other way.
Yes.
You're having too much fun, right?
Yes. So on that store number two, Greg and Brock come up. Of course, we wanted to take 51% control of the new store, and Brock and Greg come up with the 49%. And so they invested in store number 2 in 2014 that had a manager in place because the 70-plus-year-old were not running day-to-day operations. So, and they had good personnel, good facilities. So we stepped into that one as a partnership with the new LLC, and I call it golden handcuffs on my key personnel. Now they got skin in the game. They can't just exit and come and go with. But it's been a great relationship with our 2 leaders, and so that was a good launching pad. And by that time, we had a lot of process and procedures in place, because by 2014 we had 4 years of good meetings with 20 group members, and a lot of process and procedures. So that made it a lot smoother transition on that second time around.
You also had the nightmare of those years of losses from first attempt at number 2. Question about your partners: what are their roles in the second store?
Second store, one of the things was we cannot make store number 1 suffer. We're not going to rob Peter to pay Paul, and so, which was easy to do because we had good help at the second store. So we each sort of tried to make a visit once a week down there, with that second store, take our turns and just check it out. And of course,
Did they work at that store, or were they just they worked at store 1, but they had skinny and equity in it?
Yeah.
Wow. So they stayed with you. What are their roles currently then in store number 1?
They had their hands full because they had to maintain one of the factors of doing this. They had to maintain their individual goals and duties at store number 1. So,
but what were those duties, Jeff?
So Brock, he was inventory management and shop manager, and he oversaw probably 20 some employees. Okay. And Greg was our number 1 sales. He rocked our world on the sales side of it and ran our service trucks. So with that knowledge built in, and they knew they had equity in the second store, they brought their talent into that store without working there, though. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Cool. Now, talk about working hard. Austin, did you ever find yourself trapped in your business and not paying enough attention to the rest of the world in your 3 stores?
Most definitely. Our first store is also our biggest store. And what would happen is, with the second store starting out, if we got super busy at the first store, I would just get buried in the day-to-day tasks, writing service, making sure everything was getting done because of the size of the store. And by doing that,
you were the fallback guy.
I was.
You made yourself the fallback guy because you loved to do that, right?
Unfortunately, that's how it was. Looking back, I see that wasn't wise, but that would be some advice for someone going ahead is, can you step away from your first store and things continue to go, or is that first store going to take a hit when you step back?
So you can't be the centerpiece of your business if you want to grow, because you're going to get pulled in many other directions, and you really don't want your role in your first store to suffer. So it's tough, Jeff, I'm sure. I mean, think about the size of your business to find the talent that you currently have and give up your responsibilities. Because Jeff, here's a great question. If there was anything that you had to do and never have to worry about it, what do you love to do in the business? Is it marketing? Is it wrenching? Is it counter?
Believe it or not, I love working in the shop. As far as it's like a huge football team, and I sort of like to do the play calling, and I don't like to carry the ball, and I don't like to be the main tackler, but I love to make the play calls and see the shop rock and roll as far as the car count and things.
So you love being in charge of triage.
That'd be a good way to put it.
That'd be a good way to put it. And every once in a while, do you find yourself doing that just to have some fun?
Yes, at Getaway, the hardest thing for me is I have a tendency to put on weight if I sit at the desk too much.
Mm,
So
mm.
so we need to get out and get some steps, and it helps me constantly. Like Austin says, we're constantly working on process and procedures, trying to improve the uh, process and procedures, and the best way to do that is to get in the middle of it and see. So it's we we are, even at this store that's been here 28 years now, we're changing a lot. We've changed a lot in the last year. And then we try to uh, get that down to the other stores, and of course we're always pushing other stores to come up with new ideals, best ideals and practices.
Good, thanks. Hey guys, why purchase a Jasper quality remanufactured product? Well, the bottom line with Jasper, it's their people. You know, a Jasper associate is dedicated to high quality customer service, committed to excellence, professional, and they've got pride of ownership as part of a 100% associate owned company. And if you get a chance to visit the plant, boy, I tell you, you just got to go. Visit jasperengines.com for more information. Austin, so here's the deal. You're ready for your branch number 2. Any second thoughts that the systems and the processes were strong enough to move? And then did you have to do anything about it?
Uh, Back then, I don't think that I was as much of a system and a process guy. I thought, well, if I can do it at one store, I can do it at 2 stores. Probably what saved me is that the store was running, albeit not at a high profit, it was running, and that helped. But it did make me realize that we needed to have some systems and processes. Probably noticed it more with a 3rd store. Now it's really critical for all the stores to have a similar system and process role. And so I probably noticed it more with store 3 than I did with store 2.
Any sleepless nights?
Many.
What do you wake up and think about?
uh, Lately, it hasn't been too bad, but in the past, it's been liability. Uh, when you have 3 stores, you can't be at each store at the same time. So you're putting a lot of trust into your people. I have great employees. It's really been most of the reason why I've been able to grow, but probably some of the liability and just letting that all rest, I always want to do everything myself and just trusting that to everyone else and, being okay with that.
You know, if you had not grown, would you be able to say what you just said to me? You know, I always wanted to be the center of everything. And because now that you have 3 stores, has it allowed you to get leadership training out to the field, to step back, watch, and be proud of your people? Is that happened for you?
Yeah, I would say it's forced me to. Uh, and looking back, I would have wanted that a lot quicker. But I think a lot of single store owners, and myself included, we kind of want to be the hero of the operation. And if you're going multi-store, I think that's something you need to deal with right away because you won't be able to be the main guy. You don't want to be the main guy. You want your team to be able to step up and take care of business and, basically transition out of the day to day.
But naturally, you're putting this money out, you're carrying some new debt. Who else is going to make sure everything gets paid if it wasn't you? And I think, isn't that a natural thing that happens? We have to, if you will, fall on the bomb, cover it up.
Yeah, I would agree. When we started store number 3, I put myself on the counter because I thought this has to succeed. This can't fail.
You didn't learn anything from store 2?
Unfortunately, not enough to pull me off the counter. But
Wow.
going
Okay.
forward, I would definitely not take a counter role. It took someone from the outside saying you have to get off the counter to finally make me see that
It
that's what needed
almost
to happen.
it almost goes to show you that, you learn a lot from number 2. You take some of that learning into store 3, but not enough, right, Jeff? And now
Yep.
here we are, Jeff, you're at 5, and like you don't have to, you probably don't even have to be at work today?
We have also have great employees, and they all have the ability to satisfy the customer. And usually, when I get the phone call, the fire's pretty large, because
Okay,
they employees can put out the small fires.
but that's
So
good.
yes, it is. We have great employees, and it's not too often that I get that phone call. And but it back to that conversation about why do we want to grow, and this is a conversation Angie and I have had a lot over the years. That physically, back in the beginning, Jeff and Angie had to do it all, and then I said, as I get older, that if we're going to maintain this, my body's physically not going to be able to go and do it all. So in order to maintain our sales and grow, we have to get good people. We have to grow, and we now have opportunities for great employees to move up with our growth. And back to that blunt conversation with the fellow member, you're going to rock your world when you go to store number 2, because the process to get it set up there's just no easy way around it. It's going to take hours. And if you have great people, hopefully, 2 to 6 months, you have it up, and so where you can get your life back a little bit. And then I think, Austin, you can probably speak to this, but in the beginning, there's just no easy way around it as far as workload to get those stores up and running.
I would agree. I would plan on lots of hours. I still work a minimum of 66 hours a week, and I don't see that changing in the near future. I don't think it's something you should do if you want to work a 40-hour work week, at least not starting out. I think it can get to that, but I think it's going to take a lot of time each time you expand.
Don't kid yourself. You're going to be all in, but be careful you don't force yourself to be doing things that you hire people to do. You need to be the visionary, the strategic person. You're pulling levers on systems, you're testing systems, you're making sure that they work, you're monitoring your your margins, all your KPIs. Somebody's got to do that. Somebody shouldn't be, bringing on a new customer.
Yeah, and
you shouldn't be.
Yeah, and you'll see that your role sort of shifts from a physical role when you start adding to store to more of a coach, and doing just what you said, Carm, as far as checking KPIs and making sure the process and procedures are being followed. So physically, but the mental strain is there, as far as the stores. And it's sort of ironic when we added stores 3, 4, and 5. A fellow peer was thinking about expanding, and he was about the same age as me, and I told him, "Do not do it." I told him bluntly, "Do not do this." And the reason being of his situation, he was in a great 2-store situation already and making great money. And from my eyes, he did not have a succession plan or people to help him take the workload. He was going to have to do it at his age. And I said, it's going to rock your world, and it's not going to recover. Why I feel we're a little bit different, that we have some great employees to take on the workload. And that's what happened on store 3, 4, and 5 is, we took Brock, the leader partner, and he's taken those stores under his belt, and he's 10 years younger than me, so he has a little bit more energy than me.
Okay.
So
That's something I was curious about. When you grew to 3, 4, and 5, did you include your partners?
Yes, it was
Well,
the
good for you.
same. Yeah, same conversation. Angie says, "No way, don't want nothing to do with it." My partner, and she says, don't do it. Don't do it. And
So you sweet
Brock,
talked her. Explain that part to me.
well, I said, I won't, I totally threw her under the bus because I told her, we're not going to put the workload on you because Angie handles all the back office, And I said, we're going to get more help. And we got more help, but Angie has a ton more workload. So
Sure.
I got a little making up to do to her. So, but Brock and Greg were raising their hands and let's do 3, 4, and 5, So, and I said, I'm not going to take that challenge on because I don't have the desire to do the 75-hour work weeks. And Brock raised his hand and says, I'll get him up, I'll get him going. And he has, and Greg said, I'll take on this store number 1 and make sure it's still running at top notch. And then they've done a great job.
Austin, without the partners like Jeff has, do you see that you're building your processes and your systems and talent so that you don't have to take on partners?
I would say to some extent, I have really good managers. I would say in all 3 stores, they take ownership. I'm extremely lucky to have them. While they're not involved from a financial standpoint, they are 100% team players. And that has really, really helped us because we always think no one will work as hard as what the owner will at making the business succeed. And I would agree to an extent, but the people I have running the stores they work really, really hard.
Well, the compensation package somehow has to reflect that level of responsibilities and the abilities to be profitable.
I would agree. I would say plan on paying your top people top dollar. They earn it. They deserve it. We firmly believe that they should be compensated very fairly.
What are you guys doing to bring leadership training and any kind of training to your team? Because you've got so much responsibilities, a lot of mouths to feed, and we just don't naturally know how to be good leaders and diagnosticians and all of that. A big training commitment in your companies?
It's a never-ending battle, as far as a talent, and I've been in it 42 years, and millennials sort of get bashed a little bit, but I tell them, everybody, that we had the same problem in 1981, had the same problem in 1991, so that issue is just figuring out how to deal with it, and we're constantly trying to strive for top-notch and talent as far as improve from within. And we do look outside and try to find talent outside, not necessarily from our industry. We actually prefer talent that's not in our industry, that have leadership qualities. So, but that's till the day I die, Carm. That's the number 1 battle whether you're a single store or multi-store, is personnel. And if you can conquer that battle, you can take on the world. There's all kinds of stores, buildings, tire machines, lifts sitting out there, but it's our growth is totally based on people.
I would say as far as training, technician training has been probably easier for us because it's been fairly readily available. NAPA offers good programs. There's other groups that offer good programs. So that hasn't been as much of a struggle. But as far as leadership training, I would say our company hasn't always done the best job. I've always assumed, well, they'll learn how to be a good leader. And now that I'm not as involved in the day-to-day, that's high on my priority list to give them the same opportunities that I've received to help me be a better leader.
Wow. Okay. Misconceptions that people want to move to their second branch. Oh my God, I'm going to be able to spread all my costs everywhere. It's going to get easier. Can you guys share a few misconceptions so that we can rock the world of someone who's listening, who's ready to do branch 2 without thinking it completely through?
Yeah, we want to make sure that two stores isn't necessarily better than one. If you don't have your act together on store number one and have it uh, really financially stable and rocking the world as far as net profit, um, two stores is not gonna change your world as far as all of a sudden be more profitable. If you cannot be profitable in store number one, you should not be thinking about store number two. So and then we, believe it or not, this sounds like a big figure, but every time we had an accident, we're an acquisition type of players. We're not high rollers that build from the ground up and think we have such a strong market name that we can go conquer the world by just building from the ground up. We like to acquire existing, and in each acquisition, we put $100,000 aside budget wise that there's going to be unknown losses that are going to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fallen true that we're writing off 100,000 the unforeseen things that have popped up, and
That's great advice, Jeff. A lot of people say I've got cash reserves that if, no revenue came in, I could at least run the company for X amount of months. That's the same in concept.
yeah. One of the total surprises we had on the last acquisition was on the phone number, because the standard contract where you take over, we're buying the assets, and so we got the phone number, and then after the fact, after the ink has dried, and so this is about 30 days after, we got a final notice from, I think, Frontier Telecommunications. I don't want to throw nobody under the bus, but the previous owners have been disputing their bill for the last 3 years and only paying a portion of it. So they was never cut off because the payments were still coming in, but there was $50,000 past due because it was their internet and the phone. And we was given an ultimatum by the telecommunication company to either pay it up or they was gonna cut us off. So, and we could not, since it was two different corporations, and we could not forward those phone numbers. We did not belly up and pay that. We got all new phone numbers, and that's the kind of things that just pop up you would have never thought of in your wildest dreams. So
talk about a learning curve. Oh my God, to verify that they're in good credit standing with all of their vendors.
Yes, exactly.
Hello.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's kind of stuff that pops up.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Good advice. Austin, Jeff mentions he's in acquisition mode, that he's going to buy places. Would that be your method going forward?
I think going forward, we want to make sure that I kind of have a strategy. We want to make sure that we're never more than, so for instance, I want to have my first store paid off before I go to store 3. And if I were to go to store 4, I'd want to have store 2 paid off. But if I planned on getting another store, I would try and acquire an existing store. My first store was from the ground up, and it was the hardest. I would try and buy an existing business.
Got it. Hey, look at we're almost done, but I got a great, interesting question to leave this great episode on this great Friday afternoon here at the end of summer. Here's another reason to choose Jasper. It's their commitment to continuous improvement. That sounds familiar, doesn't it, guys? Their investment in research and development, product updates, and remanufacturing processes. There's that word again, processes, means Jasper provides the perfect product. Visit jasperengines.com. Guys, okay, great. Learned a lot. Thank you very much. But where do I get all the money to do this? So can you kind of give us an idea that if we had our store number 2, 3, or 4 in mind, how you guys look at financing? What do you do? Does the owner hold paper? Do you go to the bank? What do you leverage?
On ours, the process starts way before you even have that store located or in mind, and that's that good relationships with your banker. For us, we have a strong regional bank, and we have a strong P&L that we share with them. If you want to speed the process up, you share with them on a regular basis, whether it's monthly, quarterly, or biannual, rather than just annual, and then you sort of plant the seed with them that, hey, this is what I have in mind. What's your thoughts? As far as backing us. One of our acquisitions in 2006, we had that discussion with the bank and told them, 200,000 is what our benchmark was. Well, the asking price was 450,000, like in January. And it's like, that's typical for somebody wanting to sell, you generally want twice as much as what it's actually worth. So the deal I thought was a dead deal. It wasn't going to happen. And then out of the blue, 6 months later, because we offered 200,000, and 6 months later called up, how soon can we make it happen? So we had already planted the seed with the bank, and the bank was able to make it happen very quickly, in 30 days, which is pretty good for commercial side of it. So, but that strong relationship with your banker prior to even thinking having a location picked out and personnel that has to start way early.
Great. Has anyone ever held paper for you?
And when you say that, I'm not sure what you mean.
They would hold part of the note. They wanted 200. You gave them 100. They held 100.
No, because we would not totally feel comfortable with that. In our situation now.
Well, the bank would probably want to do the whole loan, and it's like you mentioned to the bank, hey, listen, we're working on something, and you immediately go into his sales funnel, because remember, banks make money off of loaning money. So they of course they want to do deals, but they want to do good deals. They want to do deals that they won't get burnt on.
Yes, banks are profit centers, like you said, and my history with them is they talk to you if you don't need money.
Yeah.
And then if you have $2 of assets and you only want to borrow $1, that's what they'll talk to you. If you have $3 or $4 of asset and only need $1, they're beating on your door. So it's very important to think about store number 2, that you have your ducks in a row on store number 1 before you even go to that bank, and because you don't want to stretch yourself thin on that situation.
Boy, you just said a mouthful. You got $3 or $4 of assets, and they want to loan you money, and so all of a sudden, hey, honey, let's expand. The bank wants to give us all the money we ever need, and you don't want to be pushed in that direction, because money is available until everything we just discussed for the last 40 minutes is in place. Yes, very good. So Austin, tell us, let's give you the last word on financing.
Probably what helped me the most is I share my P&L with my banker every month every year from my first store. Going forward, we've always focused heavily on debt reduction. We want to pay that debt off as fast as possible. I don't want to grow with a ton of debt. I want to grow, as safely as possible. Going forward, like for store number 2 and store number 3, we were at a position to where the second store, it took some doing. I thought I had to do some persuading. When it got time for the third store, it was like, how much do you need and when do you need it? And that came from having a good relationship, and by also being able to turn a profit, and the banker, seeing that profit and being willing to help out.
Hey, Carm, one last comment.
Sure.
2014, we started that new LLC with our leaders, and after 5 years, will be the first probably dividend that we'll pay out, because don't want people to have the misconception that second store means more money in your pocket for free spending.
Sure.
We've been plowing it all back in to growth, and so it's not a cash cow in the sense of free money to spend wildly on boats and vacation homes that we've been plowing in. And so after 5 years, we're going to, pay probably our first dividend out of that new LLC.
Good for you. Really smart. Hey, guys, thank you so much for being here as we talked about going from single store to multi-store and the challenges that you've had. Great to find out about your businesses and your strategies. Jeff Moore, Moore Tires, 5-store chain out of Rock Falls, Illinois, and my young 3-store owner here. I don't know if anyone knows this, but Austin's yet 30 years old. Am I right?
Correct. 29.
I know. Amazing, amazing. Where you are in life at such a young age. Austin Miller, Tire Star, 3 stores in Wolcottville, Indiana. Thanks, guys, for being here. Appreciate your input.